I originally moved to Alexandria when I was 7 years old. McGovern was first elected to the United States Senate in 1962, and our family relocated out here. My father was chief of staff for Senator McGovern for all of his time on the Hill, and we moved here thinking it would be a great experience for the family, and never moved back. So Alexandria became my home. I'm originally from a small town, about 1,500 people in the southeastern corner of South Dakota. It's largely a farming community. My father was an attorney and had taken over his father's law practice, and he was involved in South Dakota politics. Got involved with George McGovern, and I guess one might say euphemistically, the rest is history. I came from a politically active family, and so and so much of what we are as adults, really started when we were children, and so. We took after our parents, and my brothers and sisters and I were always politically active, and that was something that we did as youngsters in high school. We volunteered on political campaigns, both locally and actually back in South Dakota, and that was I think the underpinnings of our community involvement. When we graduated from college, we came back here, established our residence and started our families and got involved in the community. I think first as members of the local Democratic Party, and then that branched out into service on nonprofit boards and city commissions, and ultimately running for public office. My father graduated from Notre Dame and then University of Michigan Law School, but he instilled in us the value of going back to your roots and serving your community. He probably could have gone on to a big law firm in Chicago or something like that, but he chose to go back to Elk Point, South Dakota, and provide legal services to the community in which he grew up. And so I think it was important for us to always sort of recall our roots, where we came from, and the values that were instilled in us to serve our community, whether it's through volunteer activities, whether it's through service on boards or commissions involving nonprofits, or whether it's political service.
Born and raised here in Alexandria in 1950, and had an opportunity to be blessed to not only live in this great city, but to be part of it for just about my entire life. As a youngster growing up, living in the city, helping to integrate the public school system, volunteering in the community as a youth Red Cross volunteer and so forth. And then all my accolades and things I've accomplished in high school at T.C. Williams High School, and then to go off to college in Connecticut, come back to Alexandria, and the rest is history. In terms of inspiration, that's really what it all means to me, is that the fact that you can help other people that desire to go to college, they need some financial assistance. And as I tell kids every day when I'm at the Boys and Girls Club, rec centers, YMCA, I said, don't even worry about not going to college, about how you're going to pay for it. That's the job of me and others in the community. You get the education, you perform well, we'll get you there. That's been my message. I met with a group of young youth at a rec center a couple weeks ago, and we were just talking to them. These are kids that are doing very well in school. They live in public housing and so forth, and I was just querying them about what are some of the challenges they're facing and how we can help them, and what do you need, what more do you need that you're not getting in school, that you're not getting at home, with your family or whatever, and what you're not getting in the community. And they all said that we need mentors, we need role models, we need people that we can look up to that have met with success. And all the more reason why for all my years in elected office and then as a business person, whenever I would get a phone call or a written request from any school, even outside the city limits of Alexandria, and I've gone to schools in Fairfax and in Maryland and in the District of Columbia, and folks would say, we'd like to have somebody like you come and speak to students in our class, in our school, who don't get to see people like you. And I said, sure, I'd do it. And so my schedule as mayor and businessman is always jam-packed. And whenever people call, if you're not already in my calendar, I'll have to say regrets, but we'll pick you up in the future. But whenever a school or teacher or principal, anybody at rec center call and say, Mr. Mayor, can you come and talk to our kids? I drop everything I'm doing and I'm there, Johnny, on the spot.
Born here at the Alexandria Hospital on Duke Street. We lived up on Braddock Road, up in Braddock Heights. I went to George Mason Elementary School through the 6th grade, and then my parents transferred me to St. Agnes School for Girls. So I graduated from St. Agnes in 1966. So we just had our 50th class reunion. So that gives you an idea of how legendary I am. I got to know Elizabeth Ann Campagna quite well. And those of us who knew her and loved her often say she was the Mother Teresa of Alexandria. And she could get you to do anything she wanted you to do. She would take you in a room, and when our sons were young, and she got me in her office and she said, now, I want you to be in charge of the Christmas walk, the big Scottish Christmas walk parade next year. And I said, oh my gosh, that's so flattering that you would ask me, but I really have hardly done anything on the walk yet, and I have 2 small children, and they need me, and so I don't think I can give that much time. And in the way that only Elizabeth Ann Campagna could do, she looked at me and she said, I want to explain something to you. She goes, your children, by virtue of an accident of birth, are going to be fine in life. They have every advantage because they have good parents, and they're going to be fine. But there are hundreds and hundreds of children in this community who don't have that advantage, and they need you to step up and do the work that will allow them to become a peer of your children. And so I think you need to rethink your priorities and understand that you were born to do this. So I think for people that are, hesitant about volunteering, if you open yourself up to the opportunity, you'll be quite surprised at what comes out of you and what you learn from other people.
I first came to Alexandria in 1984, and it was a little bit more of a sleepy town, bedroom community outside of Washington at the time. But what I was struck with was how Alexandria was this small town in a big city. And I just couldn't be happier to find myself in a neighborhood of people that really got along and liked each other and helped each other when needed. Women in transit basically were women in administrative positions, secretaries, bookkeepers. There was no, even women bus drivers was an anomaly back then. And so for someone like myself to strive to move up within the transit industry was something that was courageous for women at that time. It was a challenge, and I'm always up for challenges, and I think that's part of why the job in Alexandria really intrigued me, because it was a new system, just like when I started in Harrisonburg, and I felt like they could really use someone like me to help get this system off the ground and make it a success. I did whatever I needed to do from I worked harder than probably most men, and because that's what you have to do if you're a woman to get where you want to go. And I sat in many, 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 many meetings where I was the only woman sitting in the room. But coming from Brooklyn, New York, I was able to use my my New York ways to be heard. It's a great city and it's a great bus system, and the two go really hand in hand. And I'm really proud that I could help Alexandria become a better city. I think an important part of any leader's job is to inspire others, and inspiring others to help build our community, to make positive impacts, and to help others. And it really boils down to community service and giving of yourself to help others.
I am someone who likes to level the playing field, is what I've concluded. I'm somebody who's very aware of differences and different opportunities. And so a number of us were aware that there were so many young people at the Alexandria Public Schools, at T.C. Williams, and our children also went to T.C. Williams, who had the capability but not the financial means to go on to continue their education. I grew up in a family that were people who were involved in the community in Austin, Minnesota, small town. My mother taught preschool in the church, and her circle that many people can relate to from that era had all sorts of service projects. And my father was somebody who joined the Kiwanis and was on boards of different groups in town, and so it was very clear to me that everyone was kind of giving back. There's an old Buddhist saying that when you light a fire, it sometimes not only enlightens the people you're lighting it for, but yourself as well. And that is truly true in this case. I've worked with so many young people and children, but with adults, donors, board members, and every one of them is like a little spark, and I'm one of those sparks. And our goal has been to improve the lives of the children with their reading skills for the tutoring consortium, with their opportunity to go on to college, for the scholarship fund, for many skills development at the Commission on Children, Youth, and Families. And I must say that I'm grateful to have had these opportunities and to be able to continue them, and I've enjoyed the journey.
It was right after Pearl Harbor. I remember sitting at my sister's in Brooklyn that Sunday. And then shortly thereafter, there was a guy that came on and said, "We want you." And I was impressed. And I thought, gee, I can do that. You know, and my sister thought, "Are you kidding?" And anyhow, I went down 480 Lexington Avenue in New York City and signed up. In 48, there was new Air Force, developed a new Air Force Corps. And I thought, I like the military. What I liked about it was the discipline and the responsibility. And I was always had a sense of responsibility. I don't know where that came. It came from my grandmother. Much good can be done or accomplished if we don't worry about who gets the credit. But you see, when I grew up in South Carolina, there were two outlets, school and church, both very strong organizations, you see. So if in school and in church, I learned to reach out, to be in charge and to lead. I think I benefited from all of it. I think I'm the big beneficiary.
I saw people talking to each other, I saw neighbors talking to each other, and it seemed to me like a community, and that's really, what I wanted to be in. I wanted to be in a place where I felt like I was home, and Alexandria has provided that for me. And I have made it into my home, and I think Alexandria as a city and Delray as a community are a place where you can be as involved as you want to be or as uninvolved as you want to be. And Delray was a neighborhood that I was able to get involved in right away by volunteering. And volunteering has, I would say that volunteering has done more for me than I've done for it. Nancy Dunning said to me, she said, I want you to join the Delray Business Association, and I want you to come to the meetings. And I did that, and then she told me, I want you to get on the board or get on the marketing committee for the Delray Business Association. But at the time, it was called the Potomac West Business Association. So from that point, I went on, to join the Business Association. I went on the marketing committee, and the next thing I knew, I was running First Thursdays. So, and it's just gone, it's just gone from there. And some of the closest and best relationships, the best friendships that I have come from volunteering. And I've met so many people, and it's just amazing. I mean, it really does do more for me than I do for it. Remember, and this is when I used to set up Cinema Del Rey by myself. I saw this little girl. She was on a little scooter, and she scooted down, and she said, hey, can you tell me what the movie is tonight? And I said, sure. And I told her what the movie was, and then she left, and she came back, and she goes, I'm sorry, do you need any help? And she has been helping me ever since. She was at that time in the 3rd grade. She's getting ready to graduate from T.C. Williams High School. We're still friends. She comes to every movie night. I'm blessed. I mean, to be in a community there where I have people that I can look up to, like Gail Reuter and Carol Bailey and Pat Miller, and I just follow in their footsteps and try to keep up with them. And if I can, give in any way to just try to make someone else's day better, it in return makes my day better.
I was working for a congressman on the east end of Long Island, the 1st Congressional District of New York. And in September of 1992, my husband died. And George was reelected that November. And as he began to serve that term, I began to realize that Long Island was a very expensive place for a widow with a dependent child. And I sort of just took a deep breath, sold my house, and moved down here, and figured I had money to live on for a while. And I was only here a couple of weeks, and I was walking down King Street and saw the Gazette packet in the little box and pulled it out and saw they were looking for a managing editor. Alexandria was changing from actually a factory town, a fishing town. The Ford plant was here, a working class town, and a place where people of ordinary means lived, and poor people lived. I think that becomes now part of the future of Alexandria. How do you encourage small business, encourage big projects, but at the same time not still making room for all the people that lived here before, still making sure you have social services and you have a safety net, still making sure you have a good, school system. The best way to be of service is find something you are passionate about, that you love. That was one of the best things about the job, was over all these years meeting all these people who were so interesting, and even some of the scoundrels were interesting too in different ways. And I mean, there were times when some of them frightened me. There were times when I found them appalling. But it was just this whole kaleidoscope of people you get to see and talk to, and that you would never ever in your ordinary life do.